Hi, I'm Jerry Ewing, the editor of Prog magazine, and I'm very, very happy to say I'm joined by Steve Howe and Geoff Downes of Yes. And we're going to have a chat about their upcoming tour in the UK, where they'll be performing Close to the Edge on its 50th anniversary. Very timely, gentlemen.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Can you, Steve, really believe it's been 50 years? And what a remarkable legacy this album has had, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, it's had quite a career of its own, really, being singled out as one of the great prog albums of the era. And also, it's a delight to play music. I mean, one of the reasons we're playing it in a way is that it wasn't some music that Yes brought out that then sort of got buried or lost or, became a myth of our time. It was an album that immediately went into our performance lists, and we found it very enjoyable to play. And we came back to it sometime in the mid 2010s and did it as an album as well. So this time, it gives a great confidence. It's wonderful music, and it's we're familiar with it on stage. It's not got that kind of mystery about it. That it's been unplayed and now we're going to play it, but more that it's something that's really been worked over the years, many times, but only so often, like we're doing it on this tour in the UK soon. And it's really a delight to see something that has lasted so well. It's stood the test of time. All those sort of cliches come in, but basically it is an album that confronted everybody at the time, especially with the length of the title track, and the beauty of things like "And You and I" on there really touch people's hearts, and it's become a stable stage piece of music. So the whole thing seems like it makes sense.
I mean, what's it like for you, Geoff? First time you ever had to play it? Obviously, you joined Yes originally with 1980, wasn't it? You come back. The first time you had to, you were a fan, obviously. The first time you had to play it, how did you feel?
I think it was the perfect album. I think that it had not just the musicality of all the individual players were firing on all cylinders, but I think also the fact that it was a big changing time for technology in music, and different sounds were coming in. Steve was experimenting, Rick Wakeman was experimenting, Chris was experimenting, and of course all the vocals are very, very ethereal at times, and they're very hard, rocky sometimes. So there's all these different influences were coming in to make this one album, as far as I could make out. And to me, it was probably the perfect album. Certainly, I think that's why it's endeared itself to so many progressive fans over the years, and still is very viable to perform live.
It certainly, it's in a period where, I mean, Yes are almost unparalleled. I mean, in the year before they released the Yes album, and then Fragile started to sort of break through pretty big in America. They then follow that up with this wonderful record, the first time they've ever recorded a side long form piece of music, and then there's Tales of Topographic Oceans and then Relay. But it seems like it was just a magical period in terms of creativity for Yes. Would you agree, Steve?
Basically, the way we recorded that was highly experimental, but at the same time, it had an orchestral approach where the quality, the symphonic kind of level of what we were doing, and as Geoff said, the incorporation of the new technologies at the time, and the Moog was brought into the studio for a while and fiddled around with. But I think the key thing is that scale of the title track did allow us to present something that was quite revolutionary. And most probably a lot of people thought, these guys are really indulgent. No, they didn't stop playing for 18 minutes, 32 seconds. What are they thinking? Are they crazy or something? But I think that our conviction to it and our determination to make a great record to follow Fragile was really very, very keen. And I know John Anderson and I presented a lot of the ideas to the band so that we could start on the right foot. We weren't searching in the rehearsal room for a sort of a key to unlock this album. There was already the prepared structures that John and I had been working on. And basically, it was a wonderful time, because I think, although it was the first 20-minute piece, it was one of the easier 20-minute pieces, considering taking this new challenge. But there wasn't really any opposition at the same time. Once the idea had been spilled and circulated to the band, then it was off and running, and there was no stopping it really. And we weren't going to diminish it in any way by thinking, oh, well, perhaps we better not do this. Should we make it 2 songs instead of 1? And I think the way it develops towards the end is very, very exciting on the record. And I'd like to point out, if it's one of the first times this is being described, is that over the years, Yes, I've never played the end section of Close to the Edge the same as the record, because it was brought down in keys. It was brought down a whole tone, because in the studio, we felt that we could reach those vocal heights, but on stage there was some restriction. But this time, this 2022 version of Close to the Edge, I'm predicting with great confidence that we'll actually be doing the right key change at the end, where we move around in loads of keys in the whole song. I mean, I can't think when it's in one key for very long, but at the end we're going to be playing it in G minor, and that is not the same as what we've been playing it on stage with for many, many years. So it was accepted that, oh, it's too high, we'll have to make a transitional key change here, and oh dear. And we all kind of got used to doing that. But gradually, I got restless with it, and I suggested this year that we really make every effort to do it as it's never been done on stage before, with the end section that I'm talking about starting in G minor, not F minor. So I think that in a way may be a secret empowerment for the whole song, because I think it may actually bring the song off to a live ending that it's never had. But it is going to be the same as the record. This is due to John Davison's ability to sort out really how John Anderson was singing that, and kind of tweak some of the harmonies. I added a little footnote that, well, I can sing it in the original key, but I'm always the low voice, so it doesn't put me under so much pressure. But certainly for Billy Sherwood and John Davison, they're going to be really stretching, but not within the realms of possibility, not stretching where he can't go. But to reorganize that end, I think is going to be really a beautiful experience.
I'm sure that'll be music to the ears of Yes fans, because I know how in such high regard they hold music. Obviously, in polls that we've conducted, Close to the Edge often comes right at the very top of the music that Yes created. Also, I think it's fascinating to note that you were on such a creative role at that point. You were such young men. I mean, it's fantastic to, when you realise quite what Yes were achieving, both creatively and in terms of increasing sales with their records as well. It's a remarkable period in time for music as a whole, I think.
In fact, I was only a third as old as I am now. I was 25, and now I'm 75. And I'm delighted. I mean, I've always been delighted to play anything from Close to the Edge. I mean, Sabi and Couture became a staple opener for many, many tours. We couldn't think of a better opener. Of course, we're not opening with it this time, because we're saving it, to where it should be at the end of the presentation of the whole album. So it really does have, I think Geoff said earlier, it's one of those perfect scenarios where, as an album, it was well conceived, well ordered, and giving Eddie his due. Eddie Offord's production was very much at a high spot there. And it's not really an album about trickery, although there's a lot of mood changes and organs flown in from churches, and it had a real mixed bag, but I think it has great continuity as well.
Yeah, I think it's a very brave album. I think that as you say, Steve, when when Wakeman powers into that church organ, and then you've got another track, the Siberian Tree with a harpsichord, and all those elements you put in there, and all the echoey voices and the layers of vocals. It's a very, very adventurous piece of music. So almost conceived like a classical piece of music, I would say.
Yeah.
When you choose an album that you're going to revisit live, well, Steve, you wrote these things. What's it like for the rest of the band? I'm assuming it. When as you were saying about the moving the final section back to its original key, it must seem quite daunting, maybe, to some of the younger guys.
Well, I mean, to be in Yes, it is challenging. It's not an easy gig. There's no 12 bars, and there's no straight time really, and there's no song that's in one, key or time signature as it goes along. But hopefully, what that is about is not trying to be clever and us wanting to make it sound complicated, because in fact, a good structure never sounds like troublesome to hear, So I think the success that we've had with it must prove that we treated the complexity as an ingredient, not a feature. And there is a lot of going back to Eddie. He was the only person we knew at the time it existed that could mix us and help to mix us by allowing everybody's part to be heard at the same time, simultaneously clear, and in fact, up until that point, a lot of records, a lot of music usually had they had the feature and it had the complementary part, and some of the other stuff was kind of in the background. But Yes, it developed this quite unique style with Eddie Offord to kind of bring everything into focus at the same time. And that was our desire, I suppose, that everybody's part was so highly valued that we weren't going to stick something in the back where you could hardly hear it. We didn't really have parts like that. Everybody had integral parts. In fact, one of the kind of simple answers to the question, I don't know if I like this song, I can't find anything to play, was, well, go and find something to play. Because if you get involved, you'll find things to play. So the band never really accepted, not before I joined and when I joined, you never really accepted a sort of passé load of people just kind of strumming and busking along. It always had to have parts, and that was the key, and it's not been said yet about this album, is that the key to Yes's great music is always in the arrangement. Doesn't matter who wrote the song, it's who can inspire greater things with a structure and with a song, with the lyrics, who can, embellish it in a way that isn't just picking up the structure and playing the structure, but actually developing your own parts. So that was the answer to the thing. Oh, I don't know about this song. Well, find a part. When you've got a part to play in this, then you'll understand why the other four guys want to play it.
I have to say, whenever Prog magazine's done historical pieces on Yes, and we've done our gone researching photos, I mean, the pictures of you guys in the studios are always quite amazing. But nonetheless, I think that when we actually did Close to the Edge earlier on this year, we found photos of you guys all with Eddie, and everyone's kind of got their hands on the mixing desk, all sort of working at the same time.
Yeah, that was a special feature of Yes, that Eddie usually took the drums, and from the drums, everybody had to sort of make approved moves. So somebody got a bit adventurous during the mixing, and overly adventurous. So because it always had a counter effect. So if Chris pushed the bass up a bit, I might push the guitar a bit more, and then John would think, hang on a second, So there was this sort of interplay, and Eddie was the marshal. He was keeping it under control. So we'd stop the tape and say, no, look, if you go that far, this happens and that happens. So the teamwork from as I was saying earlier about the arrangement, then the mixing process that you raised of lots of hands on the desk was a feature right through the 70s. Because there wasn't automation in those days, and things had to be adjusted as you went along. And of course, you could edit the mixings together once you perfected the various sections, but it still took a lot of control from Eddie to make sure that nobody went too far with their sort of like, oh, this is nice, if I push this up, this sounds nice. Yeah, but then the other guy's going, oh, hang on a second. So there was this balance struck, and it is quite a feat really to do that. It was very difficult to do that today.
Geoff, for an album that, as you said, you couldn't avoid as a student, and you reveled in, it must be quite a wonderful experience to actually be going out on stage with Yes to play the whole thing.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think the not just the track Close to the Edge, but the glorious melodies that you get in And You and I, and the odd time signatures you get in Siberian Kachoo, all of this from a musical standpoint is very fascinating to me, and I've really studied the album in great depth, and it still astounds me how they actually managed to come up with all the stuff that they did, because it's from a musicality aspect, it's an incredible piece of work, absolutely incredible. So I revel in playing it live. I love playing it live. When those big mellotron parts come in And You and I, it takes you to a new level. I get the shivers that I did when I heard it when I was a fan and a student. So it really is a great experience for me.
I'm assuming it must be true, because almost every musician I've spoken to over the last year says it, that, after the enforced break we all had thrust upon us for the last couple of years, as a band, you must be, really itching to get back out on stage and again to present this wonderful music to your fans who just absolutely lap it up.
Well, it is definitely true. I mean, this has been, an unprecedented time. I started playing on stage, I guess, when I was about 14 or 15. And it's been when I say non-stop, it's been non-stop with, like occasional years preparing groups like Asia and GTR and other bands. Obviously took a little bit of preparational time. But other than that, when it was possible to tour, we would tour. And Yes, have been doing that head on from 2008, So in fact, that the scary break we started in 2020 was certainly, a psychological problem at first, because, you had to think to yourself, well, what's going to happen? What does the future hold? And no bugger knew, nobody had a clue what was really going to transpire. And who would have thought it would have been this slow and this long and this painful and this disastrous? And, consequently, other disasters have happened. I consider Brexit a disaster personally, and, inflation's a disaster. And there's something else I don't want to mention that's a major disaster recently. So basically, the whole world has been through the mill, one thing and then another thing and then another. So I think it's going to be with great relief that this bunch of musicians can get back on stage and start playing not only Close to the Edge, but the other music that we've got prepared for the show is going to be very, very exciting. It's going to be great.
Geoff and Steve, thank you very much, and best of luck with the tour. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there on stage.
We're coming back. We're getting the band back together.